21 finger tricks every cuber should know. Now these finger tricks are just finger tricks for one layer. Now in one layer there can be many possible ways you can turn it depending on what your position is. We'll talk about that. And basics is you should be holding your cube like this. So every cube, even like on a 4x4, you should be holding your cube like this. So that's how you should be holding a cube. Now if you're advanced, you should hold your your index fingers on the edge pieces like this. So that when you're doing algorithms, it's much more easier to just transition into other finger tricks. Rather than if you're over here, then you're gonna have to do much more regrips and it's gonna be much more harder. So let's start off with the first finger trick or the first layer, which is the R. Now R, you should be always doing it with this position, or if you're like this, you should be doing it. It's very simple. R like that. And I think everyone should be knowing it, unless you're doing wrist turns and you don't know it. But R you should be turning like this. R prime is the same thing but the opposite. Next up we have R2. Now R2 is a bit more difficult because in R2 we have to regrip, so we're gonna have to position our hands like this and then we can do an R2 like that. So 1, 2, R2. If we just do it like this, it's gonna be much more difficult for that hand, and other moves in the algorithm will be much more difficult, and you're gonna have to regrip and all that. So first you should be doing is just regripping it once and then doing once and then continue our algorithm. For example, this algorithm, which is a G pump, you should be doing it like this. R2, the starting move. You shouldn't be doing R2 like that and then do continue algorithm. You should be doing regripping and then doing the rest of the algorithm. The next finger trick is for the L layer. Now it's the same thing as the right layer. You want to take your left hand and turn it L clockwise. And some bad habits is that you're gonna have to, it's kind of like a lazy move like that. It's not necessary, okay? And then L prime, same thing. The next finger trick is L2. Now on L2, bad habit that I showed earlier, it's like doing this, like a finger trick, you're like spinning a fidget spinner or something like that. I see people that do this and it's not that amazing. I mean, it is fun to do and easier. I think you should just regrip and then do the same thing as the R2. Next finger trick is the F finger trick. Now F is a much more difficult finger trick because in F you will have to regrip once to make it more easier. Now for F, if you're in this position, you should be doing it with your index finger. You just push down. Although if you're not in this position and you have the time to regrip, you should regrip like this and then do it like that, which will make it much more easier. Suppose for this Y arm, you're gonna have to regrip first rather than just doing this. You should be doing it like this if you're much more advanced and you want to save time. But if you're a beginner, you should be regripping and then do the permutation like that. Now F prime is the same thing, but in F prime, there's one more difference, is that F prime you can do it like this, much more time taking though, and you cannot, if you're gonna do it like this, if you're in this position, you can do with your thumb, like that. For F2 flicks, now F2 flicks are a bit different. You're gonna have to regrip. Without regripping, it's gonna be much more difficult and time taking. Rather, you can just regrip it like this, and then F2 you can do it with your index finger first and then followed by a middle finger. Do it once more. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Just keep practicing, and I mean after practice you should be able to do all of these finger tricks. And you should be getting faster at it. So F2, once again, you have to do it with your index finger and then your middle finger. The next finger trick is B. And B is a much more difficult finger trick because in B, you're gonna have to re-grip. So you're in this position, and now there are no such turns that will make another layer not turn with it. So if you're gonna do this layer will turn with it. So for B, you're gonna have to re-grip like this. So your thumb on top and these 3 fingers on the bottom, like that. And then you're gonna do B with your index finger. B prime is the same thing. You're gonna have to hold it like this, and then B prime, just push it. Just like that. Now B2 flicks. How are you supposed to do B2 flicks? For B2 flicks, you should be doing like the same thing with the F2. You should be doing the same thing. Now, some people do like to do another type of finger trick, which is bad, okay? Don't do this. You should be already knowing how to do double flicks like this. Now, some people do. It is very time taking, and also it is much more straining for your hand and your finger to do this so many times. Next finger trick is a U layer. For the U layer, the simple way is to just hold it in this position and then just do it like this with your index finger. Now in some cases, if your finger cannot reach there, if it's like on this case, then if it is in this position, then the simple way to do it is with your left index finger, just do it like that. So if it is in this position, so suppose for this Y prime, we do this position, and then we have that position, so we're gonna do it like that. For U prime, it's the same thing. U prime, you can do it like that with this finger, or you can do it with this if this position is not possible. For U2 flicks, it's the same thing as F2 and B2 flicks. All you have to do is just with your index finger and then your middle finger. And you should be able to do this with your left hand as well. And left hand is not necessary for F2 and B2 because not many algorithms have that. Only for U2 you should be knowing how to do it with left hand. It's much more easier actually, and it'll help you a lot. Next finger trick is D. Now for D, it's much more challenging, and this is where it gets a little bit advanced. So for D, all you have to do is hold your fingers like this, and you want to turn the bottom layer with your ring fingers. So if you want to do a D prime, then you should be doing it like this. You should be flicking it. And for D, you should do it with your left ring finger like that. For D2 flicks, the hard part is that you have to do it with your pinky finger and then your ring finger like that. And this may take a lot of practice because when I started doing that finger trick, it was much more difficult. And this finger trick is very useful in A permutations because in A permutations, you're gonna have to do a lot of D2 flicks, and it's gonna be much more helpful. So for example, if you're gonna do this algorithm for A permutation, which you should be doing, but if you have another algorithm, then you don't have to see this part. But if you're doing this algorithm, you should be doing R2, D2, and if you're gonna do fast at it, it's much more easier. For M, you should be doing it with your ring finger again, and you should be pushing it for M like that. And for M prime, you're gonna push this way to have this layer done like that, And for M2, you can try to guess it. You're gonna do it with one with your ring finger and then one with your middle finger. So M2 like that. So if we're gonna do, let's just do an H perm. So how we do it? M2, U prime, or if you do U, it doesn't really matter. I do U prime, so I do that. M2, U2, M2, U prime, M2. So that's how all the fingerticks work. Now there are S turns and E turns, and we're not going to talk about that in this video because that's going to be way advanced, and not all algorithms have E and S turns. If you guys like this video, if you did, give it a like button, subscribe to my channel, consider checking out these 2 videos, and click over here to subscribe. And I'll see you guys all next time.